Alex, you knew it was going to happen. I have something from Reddit.
Oh no.
So,
Read it on, you didn't read it unless you read it on Reddit.
That's right. That's how Reddit works. This was an interesting one for me, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. From the D&D forums, my DM is ruling that Vicious Mockery doesn't work on most monsters because he thinks they can't hear.
What?
Okay, let me read the body here. Basically, as the title says, whenever we have an encounter with a monster that is not an animal, beast, or human, he states that it can't hear, so Vicious Mockery wouldn't work. Some examples of this include zombies, skeletons, oozes, and etc. I don't know what to do. I don't feel Vicious Mockery is such a strong spell to rule it like this, but I also don't want every encounter to turn into an argument about the physical capabilities of the enemies. What an odd rule. Like, just what an odd thought for me. Like, I think that this hits me just because, as a person who has played bards in the past, or at least one, Vicious Mockery is sort of like such a signature spell for bards, even though it's not nearly as useful as a lot of other spells. But it is based on this idea of essentially psychic damage, and that you're
I just pulled it up.
Okay.
It's a cantrip, 60-foot range, instantaneous. It needs verbal components. Sorry. It is a psychic spell.
Yeah.
It says you unleash a string of insults laced with subtle enchantments at a creature you can see within range. If the target can hear you, it must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or take 1d4 psychic damage.
Right.
Take the disadvantage.
Right. So I see that what they're saying, but I don't know why a lot of these enemies wouldn't be able to hear, maybe understand or interpret.
I guess the question becomes whether it needs to comprehend you.
Yeah.
Which is different than hearing, because I could hear someone speaking at me in Chinese. I would not comprehend them.
Right.
So if they wanted to insult me in a language I don't know, if it's just the insult, it's not going to land. But the fact it's a magic-based thing, it might still, hurt. I don't know. That's a weird...
Right.
It doesn't go into the nitty-gritty of it, so you can't just sit there and go, well, the spell says. It's like, okay, it says if it can hear you. And I guess oozes, I would say, probably lack the organs to hear.
Right.
But they do have a body that can conduct vibrations.
If I remember correctly, Vicious Mockery, it's basically you roll a d20 to hit, I think is the way that works.
Yeah, well, that's normal how you hit with spells.
Well, or they have to roll a save against. That's the other way.
Yeah, if it's an attack spell, you roll a hit.
Yeah. I guess my, in-narrative thing is that if it doesn't hit, they can't, hear you or comprehend you. If it does, you could always narratively just be like, it gets a very strong impression from the general, timbre of your voice. Even if it's an ooze or a zombie or something, that it can tell that you're serious about it.
See, if we're going based on anatomy, for instance, things with ears,
Yeah.
Most animals should be able to hear you. Most humanoids should be able to hear you.
Right.
I could see saying a skeleton, in this case, would not be able to hear you because technically it's only bones.
Yeah.
I would, if I were being controversial with this, I would say, a skeleton probably cannot hear you. It lacks the organs and body parts to hear.
Sure.
A zombie, on the other hand, probably still has the body parts to hear.
Yeah.
Unless it's missing its ears and its skull. Now, a skeleton, on the other hand, does have holes in its head for ears, where the ears would go, but it does not have the meaty substances in your noggin that are required to help you actually hear.
It doesn't have your eardrum, I guess.
It doesn't have your eardrums, doesn't have the ear canals,
Right.
doesn't have anywhere to conduct sound the way that it would be heard. As far as I'm aware. Oozes, again, they can conduct vibrations. I assume that one would be iffier.
Ents I don't get.
Ents? Trees?
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, it's a living tree.
Yeah.
And it can speak, I believe, can't they?
I believe so. If we're going by Lord of the Ring rules, I don't know how D&D rules work. In Lord of the Rings, the Ents are very much verbal and communicate with people. So, I don't get that.
Okay, I guess if you really wanted to get down to it, I think if you want to make a general sweeping rule for Vicious Mockery being able to affect a creature, I would say if a creature is able to communicate verbally, with any kind of vocal, anything, it doesn't matter if it's words or grunts, if it is able to communicate with a spoken language of sorts, then I would say Vicious Mockery can affect it.
Sure.
Because it doesn't say it has to comprehend you, it just says it has to hear you. And if a creature can't hear, it is really hard to have a communication based on any sort of verbal thing.
Sure.
The same reason that if you talk to someone that's been deaf their whole life, for instance, and they try to use words, they do not sound right because they've never heard them spoken.
Of course. Yeah.
So they can make sounds and try to do the thing, but it's not gonna be most of the time correct.
Okay, so the hearing part really becomes like the thing, and if you have something that's communicative, the understanding part is a tricky one, though. If you're talking in common and the other creature can't understand common, but they can still hear you, I mean, it is a psychic attack, so being successful in it, I guess they could understand you well enough to take damage from it. They can
get the intonations from it. I'm curious what the comments of this said, because as I said, that would be my general sweeping thing if I wanted to be controversial with it.
Sure.
Like, I wouldn't ever sit there in my game and be like, yeah, no, a skeleton can't hear you, mock it. You're doing magic damage. I don't care if a skeleton can hear you. Like, unless it's specifically stated the creature is, like, deaf.
Yeah.
Then I'd probably allow it in most cases. Or if you're in a zone of silence, for instance, then that would also negate that. But, like, if I was going to be controversial, it would be if it can make sounds and it can communicate verbally of any kind. Even, like, a bear. You could Vicious Mockery a bear. It's not going to comprehend you, but it's going to be taken aback and be like...
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So that's my general sweeping rule for that. Certainly. But I'm curious what some of the comments have said. For this one,
I mean, I can give you some of the basic comments because there's some threads as you can imagine.
Yeah, I don't need all of the comments. Just like general, what's the top voted?
I'll give you the top one. The top one is can't say about how OP it is, but I believe the spell does require the target to be able to hear you. Rules as written, zombies and oozes can hear though. If your DM is saying they can't hear, you could ask them if you would be able to avoid them much more easily. And then the other top comment on here is, damn, it must be really easy to sneak up on all the permanently deafened monsters in your DM's game.
Yeah.
I like that one. It's like, let's lean into that. If they can't hear, then I can sneak up on them real freaking easy. Let me put it that way.
I could absolutely see doing that in response to a DM being like, oh yeah, zombies and stuff can't hear you. Like they're not affected because they can't hear. It's like, cool, I'm gonna sneak up on it. Not that you can do critical damage on oozes or zombies or skeletons, because they're immune to critical hits because no organs. But I would definitely be the person to be like, all right, well, I'm going to sneak up on it. When they go, it catches you. I'm like, how? It didn't hear me.
Yeah.
Because then DM would have to decide whether them being able to hear or them not being able to hear is what they want. Like, pick your rule, but pick it.
Yeah, pick it quickly, please, so that we can determine which one. Because either it's going to be something that we have to lean into that might be advantageous to us in the future, but, You're gonna have to determine if that's worth it. Yeah, I don't know. Hearing is a weird one, especially with verbal component spells. I personally just think that, like you were saying, if it can, hear in any way, shape, or form, even if it can't necessarily comprehend, you should be able to do the very limited psychic damage that a
the D4
that the Vicious Mockery does. Yeah, comparative to everything else. Yeah. Let us know in the comments down below how you feel about it.
Let us know, or we'll use Vicious Mockery on you.